What will be discussed in this video is a somewhat widely known exploit that is commonly used by a lot of players. Even though I will explain what it is and how to perform it, I highly discourage anyone who is learning how to play MvM from abusing this exploit, as it is detrimental to your overall growth as a player. The purpose of this video is to bring awareness to this exploit. Valve has recently implemented community GitHub patches to fix various issues, like with the case of how the game handles certain soft locks, and my hope is that they will also implement the community GitHub patch for this one as well. If they don't, which is honestly a gamble on my part, then I will have made what I call cursed knowledge, or knowledge that I believe is better off not known to the public, more widely accessible and understood by the general public. But also there's like a chance that no one watching this doesn't already know what it is, so like who knows? Okay, so this exploit is known by a few names, but the most notable being Godspot. But the more correct name is something along the lines of NavMesh abuse, because that's kind of what it is. But for the majority of the time, you will hear me just say the word Godspotting, because that's the most widely known term for it. But essentially, it is an exploit that abuses the NavMesh system and how robots aggro to you, which also includes whether or not you get shot at. So the name Godspot comes from the fact that if you set it up correctly, you'll be able to just stand somewhere and not be shot at, while you're able to freely act so long as you are standing there. So the reason why this is a really strong exploit is because you can just exist and shoot bots and they won't really shoot back at you. Which leads to one of the most notable examples on Big Rock called Idle Rock. Big Rock is notorious for players placing a teleporter here and having a sniper take the teleporter from somewhere else and end up on the rock, letting the sniper basically solo like everything. And this does end up being a strategy where you basically have one person doing all of the work and maybe one other person shooting a tank, and you can just two-man any mission realistically if you wanted to. 4 players can literally idle, which leads to the name Idle Rock. So in TF2, maps have different ways to make bots do things. One of those things is how bots interact with the NavMesh. If you don't know what NavMesh is, think of it as places where things wish to travel. So another loose example I can give is think about Bloons Tower Defense, where sometimes things can pull things off of the path that they want to, but they will ultimately return to that path. The same is basically true with TF2 bots, and with the NavMesh that covers the floor. A gross oversimplification of the function, but that's generally all you really need to know for this video. A way that makes it possible to visualize the NavMeshes is to use the console command nav_show_potentially_visible_1. And there's also a different command that lets you see a different kind of NavMesh called nav_edit1, which shows you this very specific grid, and you can kind of find different areas where you can see where there's no NavMesh. But the first one basically highlights all of the NavMeshes that you are able to be shot from. Don't really worry about what the difference is between the colors or anything. For the purposes of this video, you will not need it. When a robot stands on a mesh that it can see you from, it will perform a ray trace check that will give the bot additional information for more precise location and then be able to shoot you from there. If the robot is not standing in one of these meshes, the game will save the processing power by skipping the ray trace entirely. How players are able to abuse this in order to Godspot is to cleverly position yourself in a way that doesn't update this mesh, which basically means you either teleport or parkour to the spot while only touching parts of the map that don't have any mesh available, usually being more thin or usual spots like the top of walls, fences, rocks, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But by being in these God spots, you'll be able to see robots walk through areas that the game will not perform ray tracing, which means you will not be shot from there. So the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because there's a GitHub fix that was posted 2 weeks after the long list of fixes were implemented for GitHub on May 1st and 2 days after the last round of GitHub fixes done on May 12th. The super basic way to understand this fix is that if you are no longer above an area that has NavMesh, the game will no longer skip the ray tracing, meaning that you'll be shot at again. So if you start on this mesh and then disappear from that mesh without updating another one, robots can now perform ray tracing attempts in order to shoot at you. This effectively does fix Godspotting, and if you wanted to see how this looks like in game right now, custom MvM servers like potato.tf run either the same or a very similar thing to this fix, so you can't just cheese things. And on the topic of potato, just a small plug for a charity event, but if you're seeing this somewhat soon to after this video is posted, there is a small charity event called 𝘨𝘀𝘪𝑏𝘀 that is running until October 15th, 2025. Donating to this event will directly go to Direct Relief, which is a non-profit organization that basically helps out in the event of emergencies. This particular event will go towards costs directly related to California wildfires, which if you didn't know, the state of California has been on fire since the start of 2025, and with the American news being the news, it hasn't really been talked about that much recently, even though it's still ongoing for the past 7 months. Direct Relief doesn't really care about people's politics or religion, among other things, and so they help out whoever is in need. So if you want to earn either participation or donation medals, head over to potato.tf/charity to learn more, or click the tilt link in the description of this video to go directly to the charity page. That is if you happen to want to go directly to the charity page and don't really care about custom MvM. If you can't donate, just playing and spreading the word is also incredible. If you do happen to donate, be sure to include your Steam link in the comments of the donation to get medals. If you want to stay anonymous, then that's also totally fine. I am in no way affiliated with the people running this event, but the cause is good and Potato does run charity events like this fairly often, so it is always a good cause and it is worth supporting. And if you happen to see me in game, please say hello, don't be shy. What was I saying? Oh yeah, if you want to try out what this change would look like, custom servers like potato.tf are already running a fix for GodSpot. If you didn't know about GodSpotting before, then this change basically does not affect you, and now you know more about how 𝘭𝘆𝘢 works. If you are sending this to people with the intention of teaching them how to Godspot and you don't care about if this gets fixed or not, then that's vile, but oh well. I would consider this a Pandora's box because of how you can abuse this and how easy it is. Big Rock is an example that is widely known by a lot of people, so I'm trying to use this example more than other ones because I don't want to load into games and just see nothing but people Godspotting. I'd rather have chaotic fun rather than someone making things stupidly simple. So no, I do not recommend Godspotting, but I guess you know it now, and we just have to hope that Valve implements the fix that is already there. Also, I would like to point out that this does have some useful applications in things like two-manning, where sometimes some missions are only realistically doable by Godspotting, but it just makes more challenging stuff for people to do, so it's not really that huge of a loss, but yeah. Hey there, nice of you to make it to the end of the video. Thank you to my patrons that you can see on the screen, and I don't know how to end this video.